Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hop-Ons podcast, a community review podcast sponsored by our Patreon supporters. And John, for this week, my voice, it's back. My name is Colin Cox.
Yeah. If you listen to the Patreon episode we did about where he just got real mad at Money Plate, Colin sounded a little bit like Harvey Fierstein. Oh my God, what are you doing here, boys?
I did a fantastic Harvey Fierstein at the end. Yeah, I don't know if I can do it now. Let's see if I can do it without the, oh my God. No, see, it's not good. Like I have to have sick voice to do it. So
yeah, well, it's something, that poor man's voice. Anyway, hello, I am John Phelps. Colin.
John.
I don't remember how we do these. It's been a while. What do we do?
John, we are here to discuss
That's right.
Season 6, Episode 8 of Community, Intro to Recycled Film. John, this episode originally aired on April the 28th, 2015, directed by Victor Nelly Jr.
Huh. Really?
Yeah.
That's a strange name. Victor Nelly Jr. Okay.
He's hot shit. Yeah.
Hot shit!
All right. I didn't know that.
He's going downtown, baby.
Okay. He's making a Nelly joke about his Air Force Ones. If anybody not born around the same time we were, no one's going to have a fucking clue about your Nelly joke. Sure is getting hot in here, Colin.
Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa what?
Okay. Let's move forward. Who wrote this episode?
Clay Lapari, maybe? I think I got that right. So
Love him. Strong name.
Fantastic, yeah. John, this is your IMDb plot summary. The committee, along with a movie producer named Maury, help Abed complete his unfinished film. That's pretty good, but I mean, there's no mention of Chang, which I would want to mention Chang, but
Chang is a big part. Colin, can you please tell our audience who plays the role of Maury, the movie producer?
oh, damn, John, I forgot to. I know this person. I've just forgotten his name. Help me.
Well, a few weeks ago, there was an episode directed by a gentleman named Bobcat Goldthwait, and I came up with a bit
you
called
did.
You Guten Be Kidding Me about Steve Gutenberg.
It's Gutenberg.
Not knowing that Steve Gutenberg would show up. So, Colin, I would like to, one time only, resurrect the bit. You Guten Be Kidding Me.
My mind is a little bit like goo.
Colin, this is my bit where I talk for no reason about Steve Gutenberg.
Yeah, please.
And I've come up with a bit of a wild one. Here we go. Now, I should say, when I came up with this idea, I was hitting the booze real good. I had a long day, and I drank like a 10%er on like really an empty stomach. So I'm feeling quite good right now. This
is today. Okay.
Today, I came up with this.
Got
today.
it. Okay.
I went to ChatGPT, our old friend, that old ham, and I said, write me a scene where Steve Gutenberg, as himself, kills Dracula while referencing movies he was in. That's what I wrote.
That's pretty good.
Now here's the scene ChatGPT wrote me, where Steve Gutenberg kills Dracula. Scene: a dimly lit Gothic-style castle interior. Steve Gutenberg, dressed in modern attire, but exuding a confident demeanor, stands face to face with Dracula, the legendary vampire. Steve Gutenberg, with a smirk. Well, Drac, looks like you've met your match this time. Dracula, hissing. You dare challenge me, mortal? I am the Prince of Darkness, the Master of the Night. Steve Gutenberg, casually. Yeah, I heard it all before, but let me tell you something, Drac. I've faced scarier monsters than you. Steve reaches into his pocket and pulls out a pair of sunglasses, putting them on with a dramatic flourish. Steve Gutenberg. Remember that time I took on the ghostly gang in high spirits? Or when I battled those pesky aliens in Cocoon, The Return? Yeah, you're just another bump in the road, buddy. Dracula snarls, baring his fangs. You could not defeat me, mortal. I am immortal. Steve Gutenberg smirking. Yeah, tell that to the mummy I fought in The Day After Tomorrow. With lightning reflexes, Steve grabs a nearby wooden stake and plunges it into Dracula's heart. The vampire lets out a blood-curdling scream before disintegrating into dust. Steve Gutenberg, coolly. And that's a wrap. Looks like this castle's gonna need a new landlord. Steve tosses a wooden stake aside and adjusts his sunglasses with a satisfied grin. The sunlight streaming through the castle windows is a symbol of victory. Steve Guttenberg to camera. Now, who's up for some garlic pizza?
Wait, was he... Okay, first, two things. Was he, like, in Mystic Pizza or something? Is that the pizza reference?
No. Also, I should say, when he said, yeah, tell that to the mummy I fought in The Day After Tomorrow, that movie is not about mummies, and he's also not in it. So
I was thinking
that's a pretty
he's not in.
strange one.
Yeah. But it is funny. The one thing almost everyone knows him for,
Police Academy.
no reference whatsoever.
No reference like, I'm going to beat you up like I beat those criminals up in Police Academy.
In Police Academy. Yeah, no, I mean, the Goot doesn't cite Police Academy. It's just not a citable film. So.
It's beneath him. Anyway, that is the last time I'll ever do that bit.
Maybe we'll see. Me. Yeah, let's see. Maybe Steve Guttenberg returns. But John, we need to talk about this episode. So John, to do that, we need to indulge in another segment. John, I need to know if you like this episode or not. So John, I need to know, does this episode bark or bite?
It's just like a dog. This biggity boy's a diggity dog.
Here towards the end of the podcast, we have gotten increasingly goofy. I love this episode. Love this fucking episode. What a tremendously wild episode this is. It's very funny. They make a bad movie, or at least attempt to, but people seem to like it, which is the true sign of a good bad film. Chang is just extraordinary in this. The idea that someone can rocket to stardom off a catchphrase is so actually within like the realm of reality that this is in no way shocking to me. I love this episode. It's very, very funny. What about you?
Oh, this episode, full bite. We need to go to the emergency room. We need stitches.
Yeah.
This episode really gets into the calf. So I love this episode a lot. I love this episode
really
a lot.
deep sort of description of a dog bite.
Yeah.
Deep
John,
in the calf.
Just to be clear, Barker Bite is a Hop-Ons podcast segment sponsored by the musician Pit Bull. So, no, I love this episode. I thought you would like this episode a lot as well. It's a movie about as you said, the making and production of a small, ill-fated, independent film, as independent as a film can get. It's an interesting movie that explores the way, I don't know if studios do this as much, these kinds of exploitative run-and-gun projects where we know this now incredibly famous actor, like, did you know Jennifer Lawrence was in, like, I don't know, like a sequel to a sequel of a sequel for 4 minutes. So now we need to put her face on the marketing material. But I think this is, John, this is an episode that really begins an interesting, maybe potentially infrequent narrative that really carries to the end, which is this return of Jeff as maybe the protagonist of this show, the anxiety he seems to feel about things ending. But I think also this is a fascinating Abed episode because it is not uncommon for Abed to, when confronted with new challenges or really just anything new and novel, things his friends say, for Abed to maybe react poorly. But this is one of the few times that his concerns seem grounded in ways that maybe they don't seem in the past. And again, this is something that also carries, it seems, to the end of the season because of what happens to Abed at the end of the show. It's nothing nefarious or anything. It's just, I wanted you to really mark this episode because I think this episode marks a potential transition in how this show maybe wants to arrive at a kind of close or conclusion.
How it wants to wrap things up. Yeah, I love this episode. There's a couple set pieces that stick out in my mind as being a lot better than everything else in the episode. Not to say it's bad, but there's a couple of super shining moments. Also, just really quickly to talk about this point of a celebrity being in a film, then them using that to sort of push the movie to like get distribution. One of my favorite bad films of all time is Birdemic. I believe you watched Birdemic on Discord with us.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh,
terrible
Sean, this
film,
movie. Oh
but
my
that
God.
that movie is. If you look at the credits, it says Tippi Hedren is in that. Tippi Hedren was the lead actress in The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and there is one scene in Birdemic when they're in a hotel room and The Birds is playing on a television, and so that's where they
No.
say, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
and so
God,
that's how
that's
they say.
amazing.
Right. So that's exactly what this reminded me of. But yeah, I love this episode. I think it's very funny. A movie that I think gets overlooked a lot is Be Kind Rewind, where they just like swayed all these classic films. That's what they call it, swaying, when they just remake them with like the cheapest effects they can. And I really enjoy things that do that. And I think this exceeds tremendously at that. It's very funny. The stuff, how they're very smart with how they use Chang, who is seated behind a desk, and they get all this footage out of him. The best being when he's walking in the cantina, they like zoom up on his face, and you can tell they're just like shaking the asset back and forth like he's walking. That's so good. But yeah,
Because they're basically like remaking Star Wars, I guess. Like
they're
there's even a
making
joke
Star Wars
about
for sure.
like
Yeah.
like Leonard can't say the Force, but he can call himself Dracula because Dracula has now fallen into the public domain.
It's in the
as far as
public domain,
intellectual.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is why like Nosferatu is called Nosferatu, if I remember correctly. It's because there were still like intellectual property right considerations, if I remember that correctly.
That's right.
I may
You're
remember
right, yeah.
that wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the loosest possible adaptation of Star Wars. But John, this also reminds me of something that we've discussed regarding Arrested Development and this question of remixing. And I think this is obviously a little different, but what you were describing before about let's make an incredibly cheap independent version of a really popular film. I mean, that is an interesting kind of remixing, an interesting kind of play with a source text. I do like the idea that they were able to make 80 minutes out of something so incredibly restrictive, right? They have, I mean, I don't remember what Abed says exactly how much footage they have of Chang, but it's just a couple of minutes, but they're able to tease that out into 80 minutes. That's really, really quite spectacular and fantastic. I think you see the importance of play and improvisation to this maybe, if we wanted to call it a remix, whatever it is they want to do. But John, I even remember back when I worked at the video store seeing cover art for movies and not really understanding this concept or knowing that this is a thing that studios would do and thinking like, why is like Julia Roberts in this terrible looking movie? Like I don't, and why is it on the new release wall now, right? And like now all of that starts to make sense to me. So John, Chang becomes in the period between the last episode, I suppose, and this episode, Chang has become a viral sensation because he secured a part in a commercial where he shouts "Ham Girl." And
Ham girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a Hillshire Farms where this lady's talking about sandwich meats, and then for no reason whatsoever, Chang is bust through her window and screams this at her. It's really good. And he's being interviewed on the set of like an Inside Edition or something, and they're asking, how did you get to where you're at here? And you're also Spielberg is looking at you to be the voice in the Play-Doh movie, which I love that they have Spielberg making the Play-Doh movie. And yeah, Chang is a sensation. And now I have to ask what you think, because at one point she says, can you tell us how you got here? And he's like, I just went to a bunch of auditions. In Greendale? What do you think happened? What happened?
Yeah, no, I think this is something that I'm genuinely confused about. I suppose, John, I'm more interested in how he rewrites his own personal narrative, but I don't know. I mean, is it possible that there was a massive open casting call and, like, I don't know how far
Yeah.
Colorado is from California, but I know it's a lot closer than like Tennessee, for example. But I wonder, is it possible that he just sent like, I don't know, a video package in or something, and they thought that guy's weird and he could probably fit in a window, so let's just cast him. Like I'm genuinely confused as well. I have no idea how this happened.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, good on him though. But he becomes a viral sensation, much to the chagrin of the study group. Well, really, just Jeff seems to have an issue more than anything. I think Frankie is really excited because she said now that Chang's gone, our insurance premiums will go down by 6%.
Yeah.
Because I guess he was just that much of a walking catastrophe when he was there.
Well, when you perpetrated a Napoleonic coup, I can only imagine those would probably like provoke high insurance premiums, you know? So
yeah, Elroy doesn't even remember his name, which is amazing.
Very
Elroy's
funny.
so fucking good in this episode.
He's really great.
I think Abed doesn't seem to care that much. I can't really figure out how to read Abed in this. Maybe he's sad he couldn't get his movie made, but that's about it. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I think for Abed, he even says it is more about the movie, I suppose, than anything else. But even someone like the Dean, right? He makes this point, and I don't know. You could imagine this is a fun little meta-referential moment where the Dean says something like, "We put so much time and energy into him." And he just summarily leaves, and maybe at that point they're speaking more about someone like Donald Glover, right? Like we really gave him this opportunity and this platform, and where is he now? Even though I don't think Donald Glover became popular by doing something like a Ham Girl commercial, but John Chang in that interview that you mentioned rewrites his own personal narrative as someone who was forced out along the periphery of any community that might exist at Greendale. He claims that he stayed to himself, was maybe something of an isolated figure. We know that all of this is just incredibly incorrect. Do you have any thoughts about Chang rewriting his personal narrative in this way?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have no idea. I don't know what happens to somebody when they become famous. You know, I don't have a clue as to how your mindset works, and if he has an agent, I assume he probably does at this point. And they say, you know, this is a better story to tell than your actual story. I have no idea. Maybe he wants to seem more sympathetic, so people will give him more roles. I have no idea. I mean, I know that at one point they even mentioned that they talk about his teaching career, and if you've watched the show Community, like that, the teaching career is over about season two. Is that when it's done?
End of season one, actually.
End of season one. So he's not even a teacher. He hasn't been a teacher, 5-6 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, maybe he's just trying to write this like the true sort of Hollywood story, and that'll get him more roles, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he is technically a math professor now, so that's maybe.
Oh, I guess so. But he doesn't technically really do anything.
He doesn't
right?
seem to. Yeah. No, John, I really like that point because I think there are particular narratives that people like to tell themselves, and there does seem to be this fetishizing of because what he's really suggesting is a bootstrap narrative, right? That despite all of the obstacles he confronted, all of the criticism and all of the doubt, his singular not only intelligence but talent was able to transcend all of that. And I think that is, especially in an American context, a particularly seductive narrative. And it's funny because that's what it sounds like he's describing, because I think you're right. If he were to, I don't know, say something like, I had difficulty making friends because I think I might have an experimental monkey disease, that's not a particularly compelling narrative, right? Or what I do think is interesting, it's not like actors cannot be eccentric figures or something, right? But I think like that those eccentricities need to be very particular. And I think the way Chang is eccentric, those are not really the kinds of eccentricities that we really appreciate. Like, I was thinking about this today. Who are some like eccentric actors? And I was actually thinking, even though he's not anything like Chang, an actor like Harrison Ford, who seems to be so antagonistic toward his celebrity status.
Yeah.
And anytime, like, I watched him recently do a bit on Conan's podcast, and I think he asked him something like, can we swear on this? And Conan said yes, and he said, fuck you. Like, he just said, and like, that's such a weird, eccentric thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's I don't necessarily know if it's a charming kind of eccentric. Again, I think obviously I think about someone like Joaquin Phoenix, for example, who seems like a weird eccentric figure, but how many spectacular, prestigious movies has he made? So yeah, I think, like, those eccentric narratives can exist, but not Chang's eccentricities. They need to be a particular kind of eccentric, I guess.
Yeah, I think there were maybe before now. I think there has been actors that have, like, quote unquote, like, fallen from grace because of what they've done in their past, but has been able to, maybe sidestep that and come back into limelight. One of my favorite actors of all time, Paul Rubens, who was known for playing Pee Wee Herman. In his past, had something happen to him regarding an adult movie theater in New York City, and he got arrested, and there's like a whole lot of even like that story itself is something that maybe has a lot of not so good information in it, not regarding him, but they were just maybe looking for someone to arrest, and they chose him, and so, but like, he was able to sideline all that, make it into a joke, come back into the limelight, and he just grew, I think, in the hearts of people, the more and more and more, until he passed away. And I think there are actors that can do it, but you're absolutely right. I think if I was interviewing someone who told me, I have a monkey disease and I staged a coup at my college, and I was looked at as a dictator, it would be hard for me not to let everyone know that, and also make sure you don't get a job anymore. I think, we always put these people on a pedestal, and that's what Chang's doing here. He's trying to pull the bootstraps up, which America seems to eat up, and for the most part, that's just a complete false narrative that has never really happened, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think that's, and especially with someone like Paul Rubens, like, I don't know the particulars, but I think I understand what you were suggesting. I think there is this way that we now, and I think part of it is like attitude and how you respond to it. I mean, the way that, like, heterosexual affection and eroticism always has a place in public, but
sure.
Gay, queer affection and eroticism doesn't. And I think you're right, this sense that, like, maybe the only reason why someone caught him is because they were actively looking for him. And why were they actively looking for men like that? Well, because of homophobia and the marginalization of queer figures. And so I think, like, even taking all of that into consideration, how can anyone look at that and say, that's not, like, that's crossing a boundary, when, well, but there were a lot of structural boundaries that put you in this position where even doing that was something someone would catch, or something that we would consider inappropriate, when, again, like, think about how much heterosexual affection in public you've seen in your life, but my God, two men kissing or something like that. I mean, I've watched people bang in a movie theater. I promise they were not gay, because if they were, I know what the theater would have done. Like, I have actively watched people bang in a movie theater, and it's just...
Can I ask why? Because that's even weirder that you've just sort of said that.
Oh, it wasn't me. I don't know why they were doing it, but...
No, I mean, why? It's okay. It doesn't matter, Kyle. Let's talk about...
They were just up in the corner. Like, it was clear these people were having sex.
Oh, just going right at it.
Yeah.
What movie? Was it a good one? Was it like
goodness, what
Stuart
movie
Little,
was
or
it?
What are we talking?
Red Dragon.
If one were nude, say, it would be better to have outdoor privacy for that sort of thing.
Very, very sexual movie. Just nothing, pure sex.
Yeah.
Pure sex. If it was Vin Diesel in The Pacifier, that's what they're going nuts.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
oh my God.
No, I think so. Can we briefly? Did you catch the Hickey reference, by the way?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Abed said he shot 4 minutes of a movie with Chang, who was supposed to be this sort of like a hard-nosed cop who was really just, I guess, like a Hickey stand-in is what Chang is supposed to be. There's a moment when he says, "I'll punch you in the heart," which is a straight up Hickey saying.
Yeah.
And that's all they get. They get that 4 minutes, and they were able to sort of silly putty that out into. And even 7 minutes.
Yeah, and even Abed said, I had an ex-cop help me with the script, and ex-cops are not great at writing, so I think like that's obviously an extension of what we saw last season when Abed asked Hickey to help him with his police drama script.
So good.
You mentioned Elroy. John, what's the deal with the green 3 ball?
Oh, that felt very Lynchian, right? Didn't that feel very Twin Peaksy to you?
Dude, I was thinking that most of this episode, like so much of this episode, feels like something David Lynch would do, right?
Yeah, the 3 balls definitely very Lynchian. It felt straight up like a Dale Cooper thing. Like Dale Cooper would come into the to the sheriff's station and say, I found this. He'd go into this whole spiel.
Oh, I totally
and it would never be resolved, and the internet would be ablaze with it for years and years.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I have no idea.
Is the green ball Judy? Sorry, I don't mean to annoy any Twin Peaks listeners who might tweet at us. Yeah, no, John, I'm not. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the green 3 might be Judy. So yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought
Judy.
It's great.
Deep cut for any of our listeners who were also Twin Peaks listeners. Yeah.
Super deep cut. Deep. Someday we'll have a conversation where we spill all the tea about all that business. Anyway, so they get the idea that if they can use this footage, they can make a movie because technically they own the footage because Abed signed a release form.
Very smart.
Got Chang to sign a release form. Yeah, very, very smart.
Very smart.
Before Chang became the ham girl guy. And they want to make a movie that they can get distribution for, and I think make like a cool $500,000 is what sort of the number they're promised.
Yeah.
And they start to film this movie, which turns into like just a green screen science fiction film they shoot specifically in, it looks like the study room and the hallway. I think those are the 2 sets they have.
Cafeteria, maybe. I think that's the 3rd
set.
Yeah.
The Moss Cantina scene, which we will speak a lot about. What a scene.
So, John, I'm curious, again, as someone who, I know you've been on sets, you've produced some short films, what did you think of the depiction of this hastily built
pretty good.
Three set good. Yeah.
I mean, they did it in a day, it looks like. The thing about being at a community college is you just have a shit ton of people that can help you, with all the stuff. It takes about the sets that you and I, do you remember we had to build the steps for Frost? And I chose to just always be sick most of those days they were building the staircase.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we broke down a set, I thought we literally had to destroy the set, so I took a hammer and hit a wall, and then you and I had to run away before someone discovered it was us. Yeah,
it was not a good thing, but that took a long time. So they must have had a lot of hands to build these very fake everything they built. I liked it. Liked it a lot. I've never built a set before for a film. I did secure a really old house once to shoot a movie in, and we get in this old house and we had it and it was great. And then 2 weeks before everything was done, we were told we lost the location, and we had shot everybody's scenes except for mine and 2 other guys who were the main characters. And I thought, well, that sucks. So we shot all of our scenes in one room in front of a blank wall. And it looked just like this. It looked just like the Abed movie.
I mean, you did the best you could with I don't know, matching the color and the lighting and everything.
It was so bad. We decided to shoot after the movie was going to be in color, and then when we found out that, I was like, well, we have to make it all black and white because if we don't, we're gonna see that we're just in Ryan's apartment. All the hallways we shot in a bathroom hallway in Ryan's apartment. Anyway, that's Making movies is so fun.
Yeah,
I love it.
But it's also hard. Like I think that's something that actually this episode beautifully articulates is really just the challenge and how, boy, the
Oh, yeah, for
smallest
sure.
little thing. And I think even Tim Burton's Ed Wood from back in 1994, if you watch some of the sequences where they're filming,
so good. Yeah.
fantastic. But again, the challenges of making something, and again, how the smallest little mistake, the smallest thing that is not in place, not as we see in the opening sequence, not moving your bodies in sequence when you know, for example, if you're in a car or a spaceship and it's under attack and it's shaking, like you need to shake with it, not looking at the right spot if you have a CG creature. I mean, all of those small little subtle things. I think you and I, again, we've spoken about this so much, the idea that you could probably do a lot of interesting work by teaching bad movies, by really, and by doing this, it could have this kind of like reverberating effect on great movies you've watched, and how like I had no idea how great that was because I haven't watched a really bad movie. Like you've maybe watched bad movies, but not like this, where like people are not looking in the right location or their eye levels don't match. And I think this episode beautifully articulates, again, just the challenges.
It really does. I mean, there are so many things you don't think about. For me, it was, we set up to film, and the first time we filmed anything with proper actors, like we had got actors from the barter, and they're like really veteran actors. They've done this shit for years. So, and it's the first thing I've ever directed, and we get these guys in here, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And so we set up my little tiny shitty Sony 4K Handycam, and I'm using like a shotgun mic on a boom pole, and it was not the best setup. I didn't know what I was doing. And, we didn't even like lock the camera down the right way. Like they don't tell you that you're supposed to hang sandbags from the camera so it doesn't move. And we're shooting like an old house that's full of wood, so as soon as people tromp through, everything just shakes. And so you don't know that, but you don't realize that because you're not like watching dailies. You're just like so nervous you want to get it done. So you just push them through, and then the next day you go, well, this all looks like dog shit. What do I do? Well, you keep going. And I think that's the hallmark of a bad film. You just got to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see that here as well. And Abed, I think this is where, as I mentioned earlier, we see Abed expressing not necessarily antagonism, because I think this is a really interesting Abed episode. As much as we would expect him to be manic and antagonistic, he's really not. But he does have these moments, and I think the camera beautifully captures his anxiety when it's clear, like that shot, that take, not a good take. That didn't work. There's like 9 reasons why that wasn't a good take. And you can see the look on Abed's face. But I think what I like about this episode, John, is, and we arrive at this point near the end, the idea that, as you said, you just need to keep the camera rolling. You just need to continue moving forward. And I think this is also, again, something that I love to talk about, this idea that whether it's a filmmaker or a visual artist or whatever, a musician, the creator has this idea of what they want, but really talk to them about the process. And what you'll learn is, oh, none of that happened the way I wanted it to. Whatever the final product was, if I did a good job by my estimation as the person who made it, it's just closer than it otherwise would be to what I want. But I think, again, this speaks to the idea that the creative process is one without control. And anytime a filmmaker, for example, tries to convince you that they had control, they're just lying to you.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just, yeah.
I think, unless you're like on a big fucking huge production and you've got 3 ADs and everybody has to be quiet or they're going to be fined actual money, you're never going to, this is never going to succeed. I think one of my favorite moments in this episode is when they're shooting the movie and for some reason they kill Glibglob. What's his name? Glibglob.
Glibglob,
played by Garrett. He's fucking fantastic. I love Yuba Duba.
Fantastic.
I love Glibglob a lot. But they kill him. They just decide to kill him because Britta says just a line of dialogue, "Oh, he's dead now," and they just leave it in and they keep rolling. And there's a great cut back, and Steve Guttenberg's like, "Oh my God, they killed Glibglob," and then Abed's like, "Yeah, they wanted to do that." Because like in the film that we did, there was like a whole sub piece that we shot. We shot this huge plot, but one person said one line of dialogue that you just threw it all in the trash, and I was like, well, that's all just worthless now, because we're just going to keep it in. And so that's what you do. You just roll with it. I love that. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's because either Jeff or Annie makes this observation that Glib Glob and the robot they're fighting speak the same language.
Noise.
They both say, Yuba Duba. Yeah. So then that's when they decide Glib Glob is a spy, and they need to kill Glib Glob. Can we talk about how they keep referring to Glib Glob as a gagoose? I love this so much. They just keep repeating this.
A gagoose. Yeah, that's a Maury thing.
Yeah.
As much as I dislike Steve Gutenberg, he's very funny in this. He's very, very funny.
Yeah.
And when he says, you just throw a bunch of gagoos in and you get it done. I love nobody questions what that is. No one even stops to say, what the fuck is that?
Like, Elroy even, builds on it like it's an improv scene. He goes, I recently won the rights to my gingivitis character. He's basically a gagoose.
Yeah. I love that. Just like there's this old man language of what they're supposed to call like a monster. They just call it a gagoose.
A gagoose.
So fucking good.
Yeah. No, it's spectacular. But yeah, even that sequence where they decide that Glip Glop is a spy. And again, I think this is something that Abed and Jeff discuss later, the way that spontaneity can emerge out of all of these intentions. And again, just keep that camera rolling until something spectacular happens. And it seems like Abed's point is really celebrate those spectacular moments, and because of that, one must really suffer through the uncomfortable moments. John, this is something I was thinking about this. A lot of the work I do, especially in something like a 1010 class, an intro writing class, is really describing and reiterating and making students comfortable with the discomfort of the writing process. And a thing that I consistently say is, you'll feel terrible about yourself as you're writing an essay, regardless of how much success or failure you've had before, but just remember the process that we discussed throughout.
Right.
And it's fascinating to me how, because in something like Comp 1, it's just an intro composition course, I'm teaching and asking them to write 5 or 6 essays. And John, it's fascinating to watch a student transition within a particular essay unit from complete, utter discomfort and despair to just, the kind of confidence like an LA9 has when they walk down the street, right? But then, John, the minute we start a new essay, they're back to all of that discomfort and uncertainty. Like, all it takes is just starting something new. And so then I'm just consistently reminding them of the process. Like, think about the thing that you just did, where you felt really great after 2 weeks because you trusted the process. That's what a lot of this feels like to me as well, right? Abed describing this process, which is creation is deeply uncomfortable, but eventually something transcendent emerges out of all of that mundanity, out of all of that discomfort. I love that.
Yeah, I think I have before criticized the show for its after school thing that it goes for sometimes, but here I think it's really great. It's a very sweet, nice, not too cheesy message, and during I can remember. After Trump won the election in 2016, I love the McElroy Brothers podcast, and they did a podcast about we don't even know what happens now, and this is all new to us. And Justin McElroy, the oldest brother, said something like, everything is dark right now, but there's always shining points of light. You just have to look for them. And I really, that's always stuck with me. And I love that is sort of what Abed's getting at, is that you're going to go through life and there's going to be so many downs, but you live for all these ups, and to take that and put it into this cinephile language that he does is a very beautiful thing. This writer, whose name I already forgot, Walt McNally, he did a fantastic job writing this episode. Clay Pigeon, he killed it with that, because it's such a sweet, great moment, because I think what this episode's showing at the end is life isn't perfect, and as much as you have friends who you're going to be jealous of and who you're going to want to compare yourself to consistently. Abed does a great job at just stating, like, comparison is the thief of joy, and all we can do is just try to hit the highlights as best we can. And it's really good. It's a very nice moment. It's nice when these lessons come from someone who's not Jeff, because they tend to deliver them a lot more heartfelt than I think Jeff ever could. I like it a lot.
No, that's really beautifully said, because I think with Abed, it doesn't feel, because I mean, let's be clear. I don't think Jeff is always cynical, but I think there's always that question: is there a cynicism here that we must reckon with? But John, I think what I also like about this, because I mean, I get it. Like, good moments, good feelings feel good, right? But I'm also someone who I am not someone who wants to, and I don't think you were suggesting this either, just to be clear. I really like bad feelings sometimes. I like sadness. It's hard, of course, but I think we do ourselves a disservice if we try to escape from and retreat from bad feelings as quickly as possible, because I also think, like, anytime the world has changed for the better, it's because at least someone had a bad feeling about things, right?
For sure.
Think about all of the forms of societal inequality that have existed and still exist. The only reason why that changed was because someone had a bad feeling, and then they spoke about it, and they lived with that bad feeling, and they articulated that bad feeling to the point that it became really annoying and frustrating, and then eventually change occurred. And please, I don't want anyone to think this is one of those, the arc of history bends towards justice, because I don't think it does, actually. But my point is, I like bad feelings. I don't think we should fetishize bad feelings, but I think this episode beautifully articulates how you cannot have those transcendent moments. Those cannot exist independent of those bad feelings that almost seem to produce them. I like this idea that those transcendent moments emerge out of the mundanity of just people, like, fucking around and making mistakes and not doing something good, instead of, like, the transcendent is this thing that exists independent of the messiness of being a person. This episode almost seems to argue, no, transcendence emerges out of that. It emerges out of the messiness. And that's, like, I'm down with that all day. Yeah.
Yeah, as the great Bob Ross once said, you can't get to the happy times without going through the sad times first.
No, he did say that, didn't he?
He did say that.
Yeah, I think Nelly has a song about that.
Yeah.
I need to double check. I'll put
Stomping in my Air Force One, big boy. Let's talk about the cantina scene.
I'll put it right here if I can find it. Yeah. We'll see if Nelly makes the list. So
the cantina scene is the best scene of any piece of media that has ever happened. There are several things happening. We have to discuss them. First off, they have the Dean. The Dean's character in this film is just to be the back of Chang's head. They have Chang walk into the cafeteria, which is now just the Mos Eisley Cantina, except instead of having Max Rebo and his band, there's just Frankie playing the steel drums.
Back on the steel drums, man.
10 out of 10. Fantastic. And he approaches a table with Elroy dressed up as, I believe, a character named Mr. Minotaur. Is that his name?
I think that's right.
And he has horns, and he has a third eye on, which falls off during the middle of their speech, and he puts it back on. He's like, that can happen because I'm a robot. And then after they cut, Abed's like, he goes, I think I covered the eye thing. But the best moment in this comes when out of you can tell out of pure improvisation that Elroy decides to make the villain Dracula, because he has forgotten the name of what the villain's supposed to be. So he goes, Master Dracula. And that's who it is now. And I loved it so fucking much. It's my favorite thing.
He's unbelievable. Just this is one of those sequences, just if you haven't watched Tim Burton's Ed Wood, please do, because there are these beautiful, I get it. Johnny Depp's in it. He's actually pretty spectacular as
the
Ed
film's
Wood.
Incredible. It's a fucking phenomenal movie.
The film's incredible. But like there are these sequences where like like actors they're trying to walk out of a door, but they just run into the wall. They stop, and they turn and look right at the camera,
Yeah.
and then walk through the
And then
door,
they
and
just
it's
keep
like,
going, yeah.
prank, cut, moving on. Yeah, no, it's like the eye felt like one of those moments. It's like, Elroy should have looked directly into the camera if he didn't. So yeah, this is again one of those moments where, much like the idea that Glip Glop is actually a villain or a spy, you're right, Elroy just didn't have the line,
Yeah.
and there wasn't someone with the lines for him to read, so he just because, hey, this is one take Nadir, so we just get the one take, man.
Yeah. He's very Robert Altman in the way he films things. He just fucking lets it roll, man. Let's see what we get. And that's what happens to Dracula. Then, fuck, this is perfect. He gives a gun. He puts a gun down for Chief Star, which is Chang's character's name. And the way that he holds the gun is they just take a phone that he was on, and they superimpose a gun over it. And Pop comes at him as like an assassin, and he shoots him.
Oh yeah, Magnitude's back finally.
Magnitude, that's it. And he shoots him with his phone gun. And then everything dead stops like it would like in a bar scene in an 80s bar movie. And then everything comes back up when Frankie starts hitting the steel drums again. It's a classic masterpiece of a scene. I could watch it 25 times and never fucking get sick of it. I loved it so much.
John, back to our conversation last week about Money Plane. It reminds me of like handgun taped to drone, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so good. I loved it so much. And it leads into my other favorite scene, which is Leonard as like the sort of, not Dracula, but like the forerunner of Dracula. I don't know, but he's so good.
He's basically like Darth Sidious, but now he's Dracula. So
he's so good. And after he shoots Chief Star, they slow zoom on him, and he's got a tear running down his face. This is one of the funniest fucking things. There are a few times when I watch shows where you can tell they had a very good time making this, and this is one of those episodes. You can just tell that they had a blast doing all this crazy shit. I would love to hear commentary on this episode. I really would.
Yeah, because it's also fascinating how like we see again Annie. Terrible actor, and he's so bad. Leonard's really good though. Like
so good.
And I think like Elroy is weird, but I think he's good as well. It's fascinating how because I think it would be easy to make everyone bad. And a lot of them are bad. Like Jeff is bad, Britta is weird and bad and doesn't know how to deliver dialogue. But I don't know. I think Elroy is interesting. He gives an interesting performance. I think Leonard is really quite spectacular. Like you said, the crying and the tear and the way the camera frames his face. Yeah. He's really good. John, the sound design is good.
Oh,
if we want to imagine, because I think once we actually understand the frame, I think we're meant to believe we're watching actual footage of this movie. The sound design is great, I thought. I think that's what really surprised me. But that actually makes sense and actually speaks to this idea that Abed is in fact a genius, because the sound design is something he can control, independent of a set.
Yeah.
The performances he can't control. What the Minotaur eye falling off or the cycloptic eye falling off of Elroy's face cannot control that, but he can control things like the Foley and the sound design and the score, and it's really good. I thought it was fine. I didn't see any problems with it. So
yeah, no, it is. There's a moment that moment very beautiful at the end, right before their little heartfelt speech, where Jeff even says, you know, you had to make a bad movie and you ended up making like a not really that bad movie that everybody seems to like. Mm-hmm. And Abed even acknowledges it. He's like, I'm very good at what I do. It's just so good. Yeah. It's so good.
To the point that Jeff becomes the most invested person in this. If we think about like the big conflict that happens at the end, the idea that Jeff absconds with the laptop because he refuses to allow his death scene to hit the cutting room floor because they need to cut, I think, like 6 minutes or something. I think that's right. Get it down to that 6 minutes. Precise 82 minutes.
8-1. That's what he
81,
says.
81, yeah.
Need you to be at 8-1. And then they reshoot like 30 seconds of an ending with Jeff in hell talking to Chief Star, and then Glib Glob's alive. And the crowd goes fucking wild. I would love to actually see this movie for real.
What do you make of the idea that Jeff becomes clearly the most invested person in all of this? Even though, and we've seen this in so many previous episodes, John, his whole attitude throughout the episode is, I'm not invested in this. He even gives Abed this, speech about why he exercises and everything and the importance of debuting one's body. And he uses that as a kind of analogy for Abed's film. But yeah, Jeff seems to become incredibly invested in this movie. Do you have any thoughts about not necessarily why it happened, but just thoughts about that as something that happens? Because Jeff seems to suggest all of this is really the manifestation of his anxiety that everyone will leave at some point.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the answer that you are gonna want, but that's the show. That's the show, baby. Yeah. That's how we do it here on the Hop-Ons. 3,000 episodes in. There is, and that moment at the end, like, I really like it, but I also started to feel like the waves of dread coming over me because the show realizes it's coming to an end, and at this point it is sort of an actual end. Like, the show is finite, it's going to be done, and now we have to have something to talk about the last few episodes, which I get. Not the biggest fan of, but I understand why they do it, and I think it makes the most sense for it to start here. This is something we have seen before with Jeff. When Troy leaves, Jeff even says so much as the fact, like, I'll never get out of here. I know that I'm stuck here. We have seen Jeff mention several times that he is afraid he is destined to stay in Greendale. But I think the thing that always gets overshadowed is, like, that might not be such a bad thing. And Fantastic. He never says that, I'm a person that I've lived here my whole life in the same place, and I was Jeff for a very long time, thinking I'll never get out, I'll never go anywhere, and only just recently, I'm just turned 40, have I come to terms with the fact that that's not so bad. Like, I really like it here, I have a lot of friends here, I have a nice life here, and I think Jeff has never just stopped and thought of that. He's always thought of the what ifs and not the, I'm here, what can I accomplish,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, John, that's a fantastic point, and I would agree with you. It feels like what we'll see from Jeff over the next couple of episodes, hopefully, ideally, is a reconciliation much like the one you just described, which is being here is not a problem. There's this, and we've spoken about this framing of Greendale as, sure, a place with problems, a place that's far from perfect, but what Jeff, I think, just building on what you said, what Jeff fails to recognize is what I would call the emancipatory potential of a place like Greendale. The idea that this is a place for losers. That's what this place offers. Instead of those places, if they exist, existing in a kind of disconnected way along the periphery of society or civilization or whatever. No, we can make that place, we can substantiate that place in something as legitimate as a school. That's what this school can be. It can be a place for losers, a place for the dispossessed, and that's, I think, what I would like to see Jeff reconcile himself to, is the idea that that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because what you do in that moment is recognize and acknowledge who and what you are, which is a lacking, imperfect figure, and there's nowhere you can go to fix that. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can buy.
That's great.
No accomplishments that you can earn that fixes that lack. That's constitutive to just all of us. But I think you're right. I think Jeff still has a bit of work to do. He still needs to really reconcile himself to that. Yeah, that's a good point, John.
That's growing up.
Hey,
kids.
Hey.
Boy, oh boy. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap her up?
Chang blows his big chance.
Yeah, well, that's not a big shock. My favorite thing about it is he blows his big chance by saying something about Slinky. I don't know. That was really funny. But they make him leave through essentially like a dog door.
Yeah.
And then they just bring in another token Asian.
Yeah.
Which is maybe a shot at Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I think it is. Yeah.
Perhaps it is.
Yeah. They just have them
That was
waiting.
funny.
It's like we just have like 4 other Asian men waiting to do this part if something doesn't work with Chang. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the study group welcomes Chang back in their own way, because I think that they knew it was going to happen, deep inside,
Sure.
this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And they don't make fun of him or talk down to him. It's just something that happens. And I thought that was a very sweet thing at the end of the episode.
Yeah. And I like the idea that Greendale is like, have all of your aspirations. And I suppose one could argue that maybe Greendale wants, hey, if you want to go somewhere else and try to do something else, that's fine. But just know Greendale will always be here as like a collection station if you need us to be, right? No, I think, again, there's something, I think that almost sounds derogatory, but I think there's something sweet about it. Oh, we didn't talk about this quickly. The idea that even a piece of crap can have artistic merit, I think that's really important. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Money plane.
Money,
Everybody.
hey, John, it's just, I mean, I've said this before. If I could choose between a world with dollar stores full of crap and a world with a lot of bad art, give me the world with the bad art every single time. Yeah.
Yeah. Money plane.
Money plane. Want to see a guy in a Dodgers cap make a terrible movie at a house where he lost the location? Money plane.
Money plane. Money plane. You could bid on anything. You could bid on how long it takes a guy to get eaten by piranhas. That happens.
So weird. It's the weirdest thing.
You can bid how much money it would take for one guy to cut another guy's hand off.
And they're Russian for
Money
some
plane.
reason. Yeah.
Money plane. They are. Yeah. Who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? Colin. That being said,
We didn't talk about how the girl,
Yeah.
because there's just the one girl, like
Yes.
when she's doing her Black Widow thing and she like lets the guy fill her up, right? And then she just like beats the shit out of him. It's so weird. Like, why would you do that?
she does it 3 times. That's all she does in the movie. That's literally all she does. 3 different occasions.
It's so weird.
The movie fucking sucks. I'm glad I watched it. Don't recommend you do.
John.
Money plane.
Money plane. John, let us transition to some of our segments. John, who makes
Yes.
the Dean's List for you? Who is your best performance?
Ooh, Elroy. It's hands down. Elroy is a fucking juggernaut of comedy in this episode. That cantina scene is the creme de la creme. Also, the 3-ball scene's funny. The scene where he can't remember Chang's name. Everything Elroy does is stellar, and I loved it. What about you?
Yeah, no, mine's Elroy. John, he has a line. It's another Wild West line, but he just adds the word space. It's fantastic. He's so good. Yeah.
He's great.
John,
He's great.
John, now I need you to check the syllabus. And for this segment, this
Yes.
is where you identify your favorite bit of metatextual referencing and intertextual play. What do you have?
This is interesting. There's so many things. Like, all the Chris Pratt jokes are very funny to me.
We didn't talk about those. Yeah.
The fact that they think he has digital muscles, because that's also a great joke in Parks and Rec. Because in the last season of Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt is like fucking ripped because he's about to be in Guardians of the Galaxy. And they ask him in character what happened, and Andy said he stopped drinking beer. Mm-hmm. That's how they explain it. But I think mine is they almost recreate the compactor scene from Star Wars, like beat for beat, when they get stuck in the trash compactor. And then the hero is Chang, who pops out of the trash, but he's sitting in a desk. That's my favorite, man. What about you?
Do you think all the Chris Pratt stuff is because, like, Joel McHale and his ethos and vibe, like, he could have been Star-Lord?
I wonder if he was up for it, honestly. I've never read it, but he may have been.
See, like, I was thinking, like, he must have auditioned for that part.
I would think so. I mean, it seems like it would have been in his wheelhouse at the time.
Well, that's what I was thinking, right? Like he's of an appropriate age. We know he has the body for it. Like just his whole vibe, I think could work well with what that character ultimately becomes, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would love to read that. I'm sure that there is some actual like real life thing regarding that. Yeah.
No, I think mine is. Give me a second. I had it. Mine's the steel drums. So once again, Frankie playing those steel drums.
It's so good. Yeah,
it's so
how do
weird.
you not like it?
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird. And I know they told her to fake play it, but she's really fake playing it. She's really not hitting anything. It's fantastic.
John, do you have any best lines?
I didn't write any down, and there were some that I thought were very funny. Everything Elroy says is my favorite line. Oh, there's a line about Chinatown, which I thought was funny.
One. Do I have that? Yes, I do. I have that one. I'll read that one.
I don't. Go ahead. Tell me yours.
Okay. Ben Chang is on a rocket ship to eternal validation. That's something the interviewer says. Abed about Chang, great actor, huge McRib Great actor.
That was so good.
Yeah.
That was
great
a fucking
actor,
great line.
Huge McRib problem. Yeah, it's a fantastic line. It's a fantastic line. Oh, here it is. Just add some CG. That's what they do with Chris Pratt. They put him in a regular scene, and then they add some gagoose.
Some gagoose.
So let's crap out this piece of crap. I think that's something Jeff says. Here's that Elroy line. Wild West, baby. Space version of Wild West. So weird. This is a Britta Annie exchange. Improvise pockets, pay your rent, or shut up. Okay, this is, I think, the Jeff line. So the robot also says "Yuba Duba." Just hearing Jeff say that, yeah. This is it. I think this is something Britta says, and then this is the line from Steve Guttenberg. You said we were sisters, dumbass, and then he says, "That's hot. It's like Chinatown in space."
Yeah, that was fucking good.
So
that was
gross.
very good.
I feel Dracula force. I feel Dracula signals. That's what Litter says.
It's a great Litter delivery.
Oh, and I know they gave digital muscles to Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think Jeff says that at some point. Will not let it go, John. That is our conversation for Season 6, Episode 8 of Community Intro to Recycled Film. John, we have a Patreon, a page.
Oh, we do. Coming down to the wire. We only have, 4 episodes left? Oh, my God, Colin.
5.
That is wild stuff. So if you want to get in here, Patreon stuff, I guess we just don't turn the Patreon off. It'll be there, I think. Right? I mean,
at some point, so I've researched this a little bit. I think the plan, I don't know why we're talking about this now, it's fine. I think the plan, once we finish, is to suspend all charges and give patrons a couple of months to download episodes they want. I don't know what happens to those special feeds once we close the Patreon. So I think that's kind of the I'm not charging people once we're done.
I am.
Yeah, John.
I'm going to up the charges. They're going to be more. No, but you only have a short amount of time to hear all the classic good Patreon content. We just recorded an episode about Money Plane where we both got very upset. Not as funny an episode as I thought it would be. Just sort of ended with me being very angry.
You were surprisingly angry about all of that.
Well,
and I think
really
I just sounded angry because of my voice. So.
You did. You sounded very, very angry. But yeah, if you want to hear the Patreon content, it's just $3 a month, and you get all the exclusive content. Above that, $7 a month, you get the content and a sticker. And we talk about how much we like you in every episode. You're a producer. Above that, you get a T-shirt, a sticker, the content producer. Above that, I don't know. I mean, I guess we watch Police Academy together if you want to. I haven't seen that in a very long time. That is not going to be the Patreon episode, though. I can guarantee that big time. I love those movies. When I was a child. Did you like
I did too. Yeah.
Academy?
Oh, yeah. I think when I was a child, I found them incredibly engaging and funny. Absolutely. Yeah.
Probably wouldn't hold up now, I would say. I'd say there's probably big stinkers if I had to guess.
Yeah, no. Well, John, here are the producers of the Hop-Ons podcast. Thank you to Katana, Crindy, Rachel, Kate, Daniel, Lars, Rob, Robin, Jeff, and Andrew. And John's right. That link is the first one in the show notes. The second link is to our Threadless page if you would like Hop-Ons podcast merchandise. And John, if someone were so inclined as to rate and review the podcast, what would you say? What would I say? And John, new review.
Oh, yeah. We have a new one. If you rate, and by the way, if you rate and review the show, we will read the review here on the air. As I'm going to read now, this review was left February the 18th by Becca Budrock. Shout out to Becca. 5 stars. This is titled Sponsored by Wild Turkey. I see what you did there. That's my bad. Wild Turkey is real good. I found this pod recommended in a Reddit comment that I saw over a year ago. I love these guys. Hey, thanks. I've binged all the episodes, and I'm sad to hear it's coming to an end, but I'll truly be looking forward to random updates here and there. Can't wait to hear John and Colin's thoughts on the end of Season 6 of Community. Thank you so much, Becca Budrock. We appreciate the review. I'm sure we will have random things to talk about, given the content you and I like is so weirdly specific to us that I'm sure someone will see a preview for a film and they'll think, I bet John and Colin will want to talk about that. And you'd probably be right. If it's got Tom Cruise in it, there's a strong chance we'll want to speak about the angel demon man known as Tom Cruise.
I'm still waiting for us to record an episode on Far and Away.
I've never seen this film. I have no desire to watch this movie.
I want to not for Patreon. Like, people shouldn't.
No, please don't.
To hear anyone listen to people talk about Far and Away. I want to talk
Who
about
directed
this movie.
this movie?
It's such a weird fucking. Oh,
Ron Howard.
John, it's the 9. There it is. He's got it. Yeah, of course.
That
it's
was a
Ron
guess.
Howard.
I almost said Baz Luhrmann, but I thought it seems a little shittier for him even.
No. Yeah. No. Like, this is a movie that has those 90s prestige vibes, utterly devoid of any real content or message, probably directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah. Fits in our wheelhouse because Ron Howard's a big part of Arrested Development. So it's weird how all these things weave in and out of our trajectory. Anyway, thank you for the review. Again, if you rate and review the show, we will read it here on the air. I have nothing else to say to you, Colin. I'm just kidding.
John, for the... He means for this episode, I hope. John, for the Hop-Ons podcast, my name is Colin Cox.
Ham girl. I'm John. Bye.